Welcome to Neo Royal House of Pricey Cardboard. On this beautiful Friday, we have Chain and Liz joining us for a game of webcam EDH. You can see more of them on the Chain of Commander channel. Chain has been kind enough to help me in the process of Ep.19, so big thank you to you, kind sir. Didn't get the easiest game to start with, but you nailed it. He will be playing Tayam, Luminous Enigma. This is a self-milled list, pretty budget-friendly, that looks to use permanent costing 3 or less to give many counters to his board, or control ours with things like Oblivion Ring. Liz will be playing Borborygmos in Rage. This deck is pretty straightforward. It wants to ramp, and did I say ramp? In the later game, if all the landfall triggers did not close the game, Borborygmos comes down and throw lands at her face for some massive damage. Kelly will be playing our newly upgraded Anowon deck. Those of you who follow us on Instagram already got a sneak peek at the new cards. We added more melee synergy to really make it into a weapon, some more optimized rogues, and both commander cloners. It reminds me a lot of my Lyrical list, while being ever so slightly slower. A lot better at blocking though. For myself, I will be playing my only deck not featured on the channel yet, Kumena, Tyrant of Araska. This is a merfolk tribal looking to use Kumena's multiple abilities as much as possible. I run most untappers to be able to do it during other people's turn and multiple overrun effect to get some alpha strike going. This list is somewhat budget friendly, especially in the ramp and removal department. My opening hand contains Chasm Skulker, Lifecraster Bestiary, Curse of Bounty, Yavimayakos, 2 basic forests and a basic island. Not a bad hand on itself, I just wish I had one merfolk to get my rank started. Hopefully the Bestiary helped me get to them. Kelly's opening hand contains Slitherblade, Invisible Stalker, Vanquisher Banner, Ingaruk's Wake, Fraying Sanity, Tainted Owl and a Rogue's Passage. We saw on turn 1 that Kelly thought our Tainted Owl was an underground river, which makes a lot more sense with the rest of the hand. Make sure to read your cards, kids, especially the newest ones. Chain's opening hand contains Absent Falconeer, Reclamation Sage, Oblivion Ring, Oath of Ajani, Sakura Tribeelder, Karn's Bastion, and a basic forest. This feels like a solid hand with Sakura Tribeelder, or Stefan like Chain calls him, on 2, a lot of interaction and some +1/+1 synergies. You only need to draw at least one more land to get to his commander. Liz's opening hand contains Omnath, Locus of Rage, Heroic Intervention, Harrow, Crucible of Worlds, Command Tower, and 2 basic forests. Once again, a pretty solid hand. The Harrow and Crucible give Liz a free land drop from her graveyard, and if she can find any kind of fetch land, we all know how these two do in a landfall deck. Kelly gets to start this match, and land drops a Tainted Owl. Attempting to cast her Slitherblade, she gets her Dream crushed. Liz land drops a forest, and Chain land drops a fortified village. I land drop an island. Kelly land drops a Rogue's Passage, and casts Dowsing Dagger. She gives the 2 plants to Liz. Liz land drops a Myriad Landscape, a slow yet fast fetch land. Chain land drops a forest, and casts Stefan, or Steve, whatever you want to call it. I land drop Yavimayakos and pass. Kelly sadly has neither a land to play or colored mana, she has to pass. Don't worry, she gets into the game eventually, I wouldn't do that to you Anowon fans. Liz land drops a Command Tower. She then cracked Myriad Landscape for 2 basic mountains. At the end step, Chain cracks Sakura Tribeelder for a swamp. He then untaps and land drops a forest. He casts Renata, Call to the Hunt, passing. I land drop an island and then cast my commander, Kumena.
The same power that drives the river ever onward flows through the roots and branches. To me.
Kelly has another bad draw and discard to end size. Liz casts Harrow. She sacks a forest for another forest and a mountain. She then casts Crucible of Worlds, and land drops Myriad Landscape from her graveyard. Chain land drops Karn's Bastion. He casts his commander, Tayam, Luminous Enigma.
Right here, in the swamps of Indata, we can observe the legendary beast Tayam in its natural habitat. What a wonderful creature!
It comes with a +1/+1 counter from Renata. Going to combat, Chain attack Liz with Renata for 3. I then drop an island and cast Seafloor Oracle. I then tap the Oracle to make Kumena unblockable. Heading into combat, I attack Liz with Kumena. Don't forget that ramping and drawing card is threatening. I drop from my Oracle. Kelly land drops Mystic Sanctuary, which, ever so sadly, comes in tapped. Liz cracks Myriad Landscape for 2 basic forests, before land dropping Myriad Landscape again from the graveyard. Chain casts Absent Falconeer. He goes to combat and attack me with Tayam. I then drop a Forest and cast Curse of the Bounty. I think about it for a while, and since I plan on focusing Kumena on Liz, I curse Chain so that my curse potentially stays around longer. I then tap the Oracle to make Kumena unblockable. I head into combat and attack Liz with Kumena. I draw from the Oracle. In my second main, I cast Deep-Root Waters, one of the best cards in the deck. Kitty then drops a beautiful island. She then finally casts Slitherblade. She equips Dowsing Dagger onto it and pass. Liz casts Omnat, Locus of Rage. She then land drops a forest from the graveyard. This triggers Omnat for a 5/5 elemental token, or as Liz called them, Children's. Chain asks the heart of the card for an untapped white mana source. He draws, laughs, and casts Avacyn Pilgrim. He then casts Reclamation Sage, targeting Crucible of Worlds. Liz responds with Heroic Intervention. For his combat step, Chain attacks Liz with Tayam and Falconeer. I then drop an island. I cast Aqueduct's Will, targeting Chain's fortified village. I get a Merfolk token from Deep-Root Water. Bring Tribal Spell back, Wizard, they're awesome. I then cast Fallow Sage, getting another friend of my own. I tap Fallow Sage to make Kumena unblockable and draw a card off of the Sage becoming tapped. I go to combat and attack Chain with Kumena. Curse of Bounty triggers, untapping my non-land permanents. I respond to my trigger by tapping 3 Merfolk to draw a card. After damage, I also draw from the Oracle. I discard a forest to end size, ending my turn. Kitty then drops Underground River. There it was! She then casts her commander, Anowon, the Ruined Thief.
Why is the deck always gone?
She head into combat and attack Chain with the equipped Slitherblade. Curse of the Bounty triggers, and I respawn by tapping 5 Merfolk to put a +1/+1 counters on my squad. Anowon then triggers, milling Chain by 4. Since the mill included a creature, Kelly draws a card. Dowsing Dagger triggers, transforming into Lotus Veil. Kelly follow it up with Sphinx Tutelage, and pass. Liz sacks Myriad Landscape for 2 forests. Omnat triggers, getting 2 more Children's. Liz then land drops Myriad Landscape once more. She casts Reclamation Sage, targeting Curse of the Bounty. Going into combat, Liz attacks me with a 5/5 elemental. I block with Kumena, and before damage, I tap 5 Merfolk to put a +1/+1 counter on all my Merfolks. I draw a card from Fallow Sage, and this makes my commander into a 4/6, blocking the Children without killing it. Chain casts Oath of Ajani. He then activates Tayam, returning Celestia's Sanctuary to the battlefield. He bounces Fortified Village, removing his flood counters. He then land drop the Fortified Village for turn. Heading into combat, Chain attacks me with Rex Sage, Avacyn Pilgrim, and the Falconeer for 8 points of damage. I land drop a Command Tower. I then cast Baral's Expertise, targeting the Crucible of World, a 5/5 elemental, and Tayam. My original plan was to bounce 3 elemental to prevent the death's trigger, but looking back at this, maybe I should have bounced Omnat since it cost a lot more than the Crucible. I then cast Steambed Aqueducts for free from the Expertise. I get a Merfolk token from Deep-Root Water. For my combat step, I tap my new Merfolk token to make Kumena unblockable and attack Liz with it, drawing a card from the Oracle. Kelly draws for turn, triggering Sphinx Tutelage, targeting Liz. Liz mills 2 and does not repeat the process. Kelly then land drops Murkwater Pathway, one of the new lands from Zendikar Rising, and casts Invisible Stalker. She followed it up with Vanquisher's Banner, which pushed me to give a good old Order comment. She goes to combat, attacking Chain with Slitherblade. Anowon triggers, Chain mills 3 and Kelly draws, which then triggers Tutelage, targeting Liz, and she mills 4. Liz sacks Myriad Landscape for 2 mountain. Omnat triggers, getting 2 5/5 elementals. She then casts her commander, Borborygmos Enraged.
I am the Alpha, and you're my dinner.
After that, she land drops a forest, getting another 5/5. Heading into combat, Liz attacked me with 3 elementals. You kinda forget how big they are when they look this cute. I block 1 with a Merfolk token and take 10.
Just don't anger me.
I'm going to anger you because you got angry people everywhere.
But look how happy they are. So happy.
They're mischievous babies.
Mischievous jelly bean babies, yes.
Oh yeah.
Chain casts Collective Effort, escalating twice. He targets Borborygmos as the creature to destroy, Deeproot Water as the enchantment, and Chain as the player to put +1/+1 counters on the creatures. Liz responds, discarding 2 lands to kill Absent Falconeer before it gets too big. Chain then recasts Tayam. He followed it up with Spore Frog. My Mirren PTSD is kicking in. I tap 3 Merfolk to draw a card, and draw 1 more from Fallow Sage. I cast Thunderfoot Battle. I then tap a Merfolk token to make Kumena unblockable. Planning to deal some damage, I attack Liz with Kumena and Kelly with Fallow Sage and Seafloor Oracle. I draw with Fallow Sage. I then draw 3 more from Oracle. I'll then drop an island, and then cast Silvergill Adept, revealing Miro Ridgery to not pay the 3 additional. Doing this video, I stumbled upon the full-out version of this card. It's fair to say that it's on its way to me. I go to discard 5 lands to my hand size, and Liz sheds a tear about all those poor lands not being thrown as damage. Kelly draws for turn, triggering Tutelage, she targets Liz, and Liz mills 2. She goes straight to combat, attacking Chain with Slitherblade and me with Invisible Stalker. Anowon triggers, we both mill 3, both hitting a creature, so Kelly draws 2 cards, which then triggers Tutelage, targeting Liz with both triggers, and Liz mills 4. Kelly then drops River of Tears, a land I still can't get my head around. She casts Black Bloom Rogue, triggering Vanquisher Banner, which you guessed it, triggers Tutelage on our poor friend Liz. She mills 4. Kelly then passes. Liz untaps, and inspired by Kelly, she starts her turn with combat. She sends 6 Elemental to Chain. Chain respawn, sacking Spore Frog and not blocking. Liz recasts her commander. And then land drops Glacial Chasm, sacking a forest. My combat-centered Merfolk deck is feeling quite shut down right now. Omnath triggers, getting a 5/5. Chain casts Seal of Doom. He immediately sacked the seal, targeting Omnath. Liz responds with Beast Within, targeting Tayam. An eye for an eye. Omnath dies, and Liz targets Rex Sage with the death trigger. Chain then casts Cleansing Nova, destroying all creatures. I respawn by tapping 3 Merfolk to draw a card. I untap and then drop an island. I cast Miro Ridgery, and follow it up with Murkfield Leech. At my end step, Kelly flashes in a Fairy Vandal, triggering Vanquisher Banner. She draws, triggering Tutelage, targeting Liz. Kelly draws for turn, triggering Tutelage, targeting Liz. Liz repeats the process 3 times, milling 6. Kelly then drops a Swamp and casts Heraldic Banner, naming blue. She then recasts her commander, triggering Vanquisher Banner. She draws, triggering Fairy Vandal to get a counter, and Tutelage mills Liz by 4. Kelly casts Freeing Sanity, cursing Liz. Once all of this is done, Kelly attacks Chain for 5. Chain mills 5, hitting no creature. At the end step, Liz mills 12 from Freeing Sanity. Did you know this works on instants and sorceries? I did not. Liz pays 2 to keep Glacial Chasm on the field, and dredges Life from the Loam at her draw step. She then casts Life from the Loam, targeting Tranquil Thicket, Forgotten Cave, and Hall of the Bandit Lord. She then drops Kessig Wolf Run. At the end step, Liz mills 4 from Freeing Sanity. Chain then drops Sandstep Citadel, and recast Tayam, passing. I then drop Unclaimed Territory, naming Merfolk. I cast Lifecrafter Bestiary, and then recast Kumena. Bestiary trigger, and I pay the green to draw a card. Ridgery trigger as well, untapping my command tower. I then cast Lord of Atlantis. I untap my command tower once more. I head into combat, and attack Chain with Murkfield Leech and Kelly with Merfolk Ridgery. No blockers are declared, and Liz respawn targeting Ridgery with Kessig Wolf Run for 8.
I just wanted on record that I did not plan this.
My creatures untap because of Murkfield Leech. Kelly draws for turn, triggering Tutelage, targeting Liz, and she mills 4. Kelly then casts Lightning Greaves and a Nighthawk Scavenger. Kelly draws, triggering Fairy Vandal and Tutelage. Liz mills 2. Kelly then equips the Nighthawk with Lightning Greaves and go into combat. She attacks Chain with the Nighthawk and me with the Fairy Vandal. I respawn by tapping 3 Merfolk to draw a card. Anowon triggers, me and Chain mill, both hitting a creature, so Kelly draws 2 cards, milling Liz by 8. Kelly then drops Fittic Pool, and follow it up with Una, Queen of the Fae. At the end step, Liz mills our remaining 12 cards. Liz pays 4 to keep Glacial Chasm at her upkeep. She does a quick turn of her graveyard, and seeing no way out, she cycles Tranquil Ticket. She draws from an empty library and loses the game. Chain casts Night of Autumn, targeting Lightning Greaves with the ETB. He then casts Oblivion Ring, targeting Nighthawk Scavenger. I tap 3 Merfolks to draw a card. At my upkeep, I scry from Bestiary, bottoming it. I land drop a Reliquary Tower, and cast a Soul Ring. I then cast Stony Brook Banneret. Ridgery trigger, untapping my Soul Ring. I then cast Rishkar's Expertise to draw 6 cards. I cast Overrun off of the Expertise. Kelly respawn with Counter Spell on the Overrun, which I respawn to with Swan Song. I then recast Quest for Renewal, which doesn't do a lot since I already have Murkfiend Liege. I tap Stony Brook Banneret to make Kumena unblockable, and start my combat phase. I attack Kelly with everything. It's 24 Island Walk damage and 7 trample. Kelly blocks Liege with Una and the bird as her only way to survive. I react to blockers with Reality Shift on Una. Kelly dies from combat damage because of the trample.
Alright, let's see what I can
That's
do.
so sad.
What can I do? No, he can't win by Infect and Mill in the same game. That's just not allowed.
Me and Chain both untap for his turn. He casts Rishkar, Pima Renegade, putting counters on Tayam and Night of Autumn. He then casts Visceraseer. I tap 3 Merfolk to draw a card at the end step. I scry from Bestiary, bottoming it. I cast Aquatic Incursion, getting 2 more X-Proof Merfolk tokens, and follow it up with a Talisman of Curiosity. I then drop a Scavenger Ground, which is coming quite at the right time. I tap 1 Merfolk token to make Kumena unblockable, and pay 4 mana to make Lord of Atlantis unblockable with my enchantment. Heading into combat, I attack Chain for 11 points of damage, and he takes it. We untap. Chain casts Gnarled Colony, paying Kicker.
Oh no! Rishkar is a creature with a counter, not necessarily a 1/1 counter.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh! Yeah, okay, carry on. We're doing fine.
At the end step, I tap 6 Merfolk to draw 2 cards. I scry at my upkeep, keeping it on top. I cast Cozy Trickster. Bestiary triggers, and I pay the green. I tap Cozy's Trickster to make Kumena unblockable, and pay 4 to make Lord of Atlantis unblockable again. I send the same attack party to Chain. Chain responds, activating Tayam for his frog. I respond by activating my Scavenger Ground to exile all graveyards. Chain responds activating Tayam again to put a trigger on top of the stack. Resolve the stack, bringing back Spore Frog. Scavenger Ground then exiles all the graveyards, and the second Tayam activation mills 3 and brings back a forest. Chain then sacrifices Spore Frog to fog the combat step. In post-combat main phase, I cast Quicksilver Fountain, the prof's last pick in his jank episode with 1 more mana. I then drop an island and tap 3 Merfolk to draw a card. We untap. Chain puts a flood counter on Karn's Bastion, and then casts Soul Guide Lantern, which he sacks to draw a card. He then casts Renegade Relier. Revolt triggers, returning his stupid frog to the battlefield. I tap 6 Merfolk to draw 2 cards at the end step. I put a flood counter on the forest and scry from Bestiary, keeping it on top. I then drop a forest and cast Curse of the Swine where X equals 7. I target all of Chain's creatures. He respawns, sacking Spore Frog, fogging the combat step. He then sacks all of his creatures to Visceraseer to scry, bottoming all of them. I follow it up with Illusionist Bracers and equip them to Kumena. I tap 6 Merfolks to draw 4 cards. We untap. Chain puts a flood counter on a forest and pass. At the end step, I tap 6 Merfolk to draw 4 cards. I put a flood counter on a forest and scry 1. I go straight to combat and attack Chain with 4 creatures. He responds, revealing a full art Plains, finally taking combat damage. Looking back at this game, while being harder to bring back Spore Frog every turn in Tayam than it is in Meren, because of the counter's requirement, doing so with an activated ability makes it quite difficult to exile it from its graveyard. I would have needed something like a Scavenging Ooze. I had a really good game with Kumena, having an untapper and a lot of draw triggers for the whole game. It might not look like it because I drew a lot, but this deck is packing a lot less interaction than the rest of my decks. Kelly had a pretty rough start. Keeping a colorless hand is never great when you need blue to start. Luckily, she drew blue first and not a black source. The Dowsing Dagger, which taps for 3/1 split, also helped her catch back, and while Liz was very down for some mill action at the start, it became quite overwhelming with the freeing sanity. Talking about Liz, opening with Crucible of World and Myriad Landscape was pretty solid, ramping every turn without using a card from her hand. Since she had Omnap, she could turn this into board presence. We sadly didn't see much of Borborygmos. I think Chain has played enough games against it to know better than to let it chill on the table. I was keeping an eye for something like Creeping Renaissance or Splendid Reclamation. Luckily for us, when she did mill it, she didn't have enough mana for both the flashback and our commander in the same turn. Chain's deck is really interesting. Tayam could have been a commander that fits my playstyle, but I already have a CDC Blood Tyrant and a Truxa +1/+1 counters. This would give me a very similar play experience. While staying budget, a couple of cards drew my attention. Renegade Relier, for example, fits perfectly into the list, and Note Evasiony is a really efficient way to put a lot of counter on the board. Chain has not made a deck tech on it yet, but you can find his most recent Scarecrow list he released for the month of October. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and thank you for our guest for a very pleasant game of EDH. It really felt like playing with friends even though we never spoke to Liz before. Me and Kitty are looking forward to do it again. Make sure to subscribe to Chain's channel and to ourselves. We post every Friday, and next Friday is the Halloween special. You really don't want to miss that one. I concocted for you some special rules that will change the course of the game and some other special guests. Take care and see you soon.
Meet the next boys. We eat